We continue now at the top of Daf Nun Tesam and Beis in Meseches Kiddushin. This is Kiddushin Daf 59b. This Daf is sponsored by Sean Kashani. Thank you for your sponsorship. If you would like to sponsor an Amud or a Daf, please take a look at the description box below. And please see the description box below to see how you can support this channel. On the previous Amud, there was a machlokus between Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish. The machlokus had to do with a situation where a man is mekadesh a woman, and he says to the woman that the Kiddushin is going to take place after 30 days, and then within the 30 days she retracts her acceptance of the Kiddushin. And Rabbi Yochanan said she is able to retract, and Reish Lakish said she is not able to retract. The idea was again that Rabbi Yochanan says that the dibor is able to come along and be mevatel that previous dibor, and Reish Lakish said the dibor is not able to be mevatel that dibor, and Reish Lakish said that Reish Lakish said he would admit in a situation where there was no maisa whatsoever accompanying the original dibor, so then a dibor could be mevatel another dibor. But you have a situation over here where she accepts the Kiddushin, there's really a somewhat of a maisa also attached to the dibor, so therefore Reish Lakish says it's not possible for her to be mevatel that, she can't come later and retract. And so the Gemara now is in the middle of asking a series of questions on the various opinions, and here we have a question of Reish Lakish against Rabbi Yochanan from a Tosefta in Kalim. The Tosefta in Kalim says that if it's possible for a Kli to be considered a final Kli through a machshava, meaning to say that the owner of the Kli, he has in mind, he has a thought that he's not going to refine the Kli any further, and then it's considered to be a final product that can be Makabel Tumah. But once you have a Kli that's able to be Makabel Tumah, so if you want it not to be Makabel Tumah, or you want it to become pure, let's say it was already Makabel Tumah, so then you have to have an actual Maisa, you have to have some actual physical change to the Kli. So in other words, it's possible, for example, let's say the Kli is damaged or something like that, it gets a hole in it, so then we would say that it's no longer going to be Tameh. Or let's say you have a Kli that again was considered to be a finished product that's able to be Makabel Tumah, and then you start to refine the product, you do something actual physical to the product, so then we say it's no longer able to be Makabel Tumah because it's not considered to be a final product. And the Tosefta continues, Maisa Motzi, Miad Maiso Miad Machshava. If you have something physical that happens, so then that can take it away from its status. Let's say something previously physical happened, or there was some kind of Machshava, there was some kind of a thought that made it considered a final product. So a Maisa is able to undo that. However, Machshava, but if you just have thought alone, let's say the person thinks in his mind that he wants to refine the product further, but it was already considered a final product, so Ein Motzi Lo Miad Maisa V'Lo Miad Machshava. It's not able to undo its status as a final product, whether that status happened through something physical or whether it happened through Machshava, but Machshava is not able to undo that. And so now the Gemara says, B'shlama miyad maisa lo mifka. I understand that a machshava is not able to undo a maisa. The lo asi dibur mevatel maisa, as we said, a dibur is not able to come along and undo a maisa. Ela miyad machshava miyatavik, but a machshava should be able to undo a machshava, but apparently it's not able to do a machshava, and that's the question of Reish Lakish against Rabbi Yochanan. Again, Rabbi Yochanan said that a dibur is able to undo a dibur, and Reish Lakish said it's not able, and so therefore you have a question against Rabbi Yochanan. And the Gemara answers to that, Shani machshava de tumah. It's different when you're talking about the machshava that has to do with the halachas of tumah, dechi maisa dami, because it happens to be that particular machshava is actually as strong as a maisa. It's considered to be something that is physical. Uchad Rav Papa, it's like what Rav Papa said, the Rav Papa Rami, because Rav Papa had the following contradiction. Ksiv, the pasuk, it's written in the pasuk Kiyitein. It's talking about the fact that when you have something that is attached to the ground, let's say you have something like a food product, and then it becomes detached from the ground. So in order to be makabel tumah, that item that is food, in order for it to be makabel tumah, it has to have a hechsher lekabel tumah. It has to have some water that touches it after it's detached from the ground. So it says in the pasuk, the way it's written is kiyitein, that you actually actively put the water on it. However, v'karin on kiyutan, but it's read as kiyutan as if it's something that's happening passively. Hakeitzat how? So kiyutan dumya dechiyitein. We say the yutan is similar rather to the yitain. My yitain de nichole, just like when you'd actively put water on something, obviously it's nichole, it's something that is good, it's something that is pleasing to the person who's doing the action. Af yutan de nichole, so too, even if it happens passively, even if the water goes on its own and you don't do it, but if it's something that's pleasing, so then if it's something that's pleasing to the person, that's considered enough to be machsher, to be makabel tumah, and you see it's going by the person's machshava. You see that the person thinks that this is something that they want, so that's considered to be hechsher lekabel tumah, and therefore the machshava we see is considered to be like a maisa, like an action. And Rashi explains, Maisa motzi miyad maisa, again, an action can undo an action, meaning hischel loshef. Let's say the person began to refine the kli, bitel mehem toras gemar malacha l'shem kli, so therefore, it's not considered a finished product anymore. Bein sheyard lu al yedei maisa, whether it was considered a finished product previously through an action, sheichlikon v'gila daito she'in mechusar no tikon, let's say he did some kind of, he smoothed it out, and he showed he didn't want to do anything else, bein sheyard lu al yedei machshava, or whether it was considered a finished product through the person's thought. But machshava eina motzia. But if you have a thought, that doesn't undo it. Chishav alein loshav l'shavetz achar shechishav alein shalo l'shavetz. Let's say the person thinks that he wants to refine it after he thought previously that he did not want to refine it. Ein yotzid midei machshavasan harishona. So that doesn't undo the previous machshava. We still say it's considered to be a finished product. And finally, the Gemara answered, it's different when you talk about tumah because the thoughts are considered like actions. The rachmona kirya maisa, because the Torah itself calls it an action. Because it says ki yitain, it says that he puts the water on. V'hainu biyadayim, he does it actively with his own hands. V'af agav de machshava bi'almu. Now, even though the way it's phrased is as if it's an action, but it doesn't have to be an action. It could just be a thought. Te'afilu naflu memela, because even if it happened passively, water just fell on it. V'nichale, and it's pleasing to him. Have a hechsher, that's considered a hechsher l'kabel tumah. Umikri ki yutan, it's read as ki yutan. And the Gemara continues, Rav Zivid masni lahashmaita ahar. Rav Zivid, he learned the machlokas above between Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish. He learned it on a different Mishnah. He learned it on the following Mishnah. This is from a Mishnah later on. The Mishnah says, V'chein hisha nasna rishus l'shlucha l'katsha. Let's say she gives permission to her shliach, and the shliach is going to accept a kiddushin on her behalf. V'holcha hi v'kitcha es atzma. But then she goes ahead, and she accepts the kiddushin for herself. So the halacha is, im shalom kidmo, if her acceptance of the kiddushin came before the shliach, so kiddushin, so then it's considered that her kiddushin is a good kiddushin. V'im shel shlucha kidmon, if the acceptance of the kiddushin of her shliach came first, ein kiddushin, then her kiddushin, meaning her acceptance of the kiddushin, is not going to be a good kiddushin. And so on that Mishnah we have a machlokas Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish. Lo kitcha es atzma. Let's say she does not accept the kiddushin herself, v'chazra, but then she retracts, even though she had appointed a shliach to accept the kiddushin, she retracts that appointment. Mahu, what's the halach in that case? And so there we have a machlokas. Rabbi Yochanan Amar, Rabbi Yochanan says choseres. Rabbi Yochanan says she is able to retract. Reish Lakish Amar eina choseres, and Reish Lakish says she is not able to retract. Rabbi Yochanan Amar Choseres. Rabbi Yochanan says she can retract Asi Dibor Mevatel Dibor. Her Dibor can come along rather, and it can nullify her original Dibor. She originally appointed this person to be a Shliach, and now she's taking it back. She's able to do that. Dibor Mevatel Dibor. Reish Lakish Amar, Reish Lakish says Eina Choseres. She's not able to retract Lo Asi Dibor Mevatel Dibor. Her Dibor is not able to come along and nullify her previous Dibor. And so then, according to this version, the Gemara has the discussion as follows: Eisvei Rabbi Yochanan l'Reish Lakish. Rabbi Yochanan asked Reish Lakish the following question. This again is from Trumas. Bitel iman shelo taram bitel. It says, let's say a person appointed a shliach to take off truma on his behalf, and then he nullifies that appointment of shlichus. If he does it before the truma is separated, then it's considered nullified. In such a situation, ain truma, so then the truma that the shliach takes off is not truma because he nullified him. That's what the Mishnah says. It seems like it's saying over here asi dibor mevatel dibor. That's why Rabbi Yochanan is asking Reish Lakish. Amar Rava says, Hacha b'mayaskin, and here what are we talking about? Kagon shekidem bal habayis v'taram eskirya. The case over here actually is, it's not simply that he undid the shlichus, that he said that he's no longer, he said that this person is no longer my shliach to take off truma. That would just be a dibor. He actually took an action over here. He actually went ahead, the bal habayis went ahead on his own, and he took off the truma himself. To have a lemaisa, that's already considered an action. That's going to be the answer on behalf of Reish Lakish. And the Gemara continues, Eisvei Reish Lakish. Reish Lakish asks the question to Rabbi Yochanan. Again, this is from the Tosefta and Kalim. Kol HaKalim yordim lidei tumasan b'machshava. It says all vessels, they become tamei through machshava, through thought. Vein olim mitumasan ela b'shina ma'isa. But something physical has to happen in order for them to be purified or for them not to be able to be makabel tumah. Ma'isa motzim yad ma'isa. Umiyad machshava, an action is able to undo an action or a thought, but machshava, but a thought, eina motzia lo miyad maisa, v'lo miyad machshava, that's not able to undo a maisa, and it's not able to undo a machshava. And so the question is as follows: B'shlama miyad maisa lo mifka. I understand that a machshava can't undo a maisa, lo asi dibur, umevatel maisa, dibur can't come along and undo a maisa, ela miyad machshava miyad tapik. But if it comes from machshava, so we should say that one machshava should be able to undo another machshava, but that's not the case. and so therefore this is a question on Rabbi Yochanan, because it seems like a dibur is not able to be mevatel a dibur. Amar lein, so the Gemara says, he says to him, Shani machshava detuma. It's different when you have the thought that creates the ability to be mekavel tuma. Techimaisa dami. That's considered to be like an action, as we said above. Uchid Rav Papa, like Rav Papa says to Rav Papa Rami, because Rav Papa had the following contradiction. Ksiv, it's written kiyitain. It's written in the pasuk kiyitain again when it's talking about the liquid that touches the food item, that now it's able to be mekavel tuma. It says kiyitain as if it's an action. The karinan kiyutan, but we read it as kiyutan. It can even be passive. Haketzat, how so? Kiyutan dumya diyitain. The yutan is similar to the yitain. My yitain the nichale. Just like if he actively pours the liquid on the food, it's obviously something that is pleasing to him. Af yutan nami the nichale. So to yutan, if it happens passively, as long as it's pleasing to him, so it's able to be machshir at lekavel tuma, and therefore you can't bring a proof from this tosefta kalim, because again, in this tosefta kalim, that original machshava is actually considered to be a ma'isa. And the Gemara continues, Eisvei Rabbi Yochanan l'Reish Lakish. Now Rabbi Yochanan asks Reish Lakish the following question. Rabbi Yochanan has a proof that a dibur is able to be mevatel dibur. Hashaleach get l'ishto, if a person sends a get to his wife, v'higia b'shliach o shesholach achar of shliach, and then he reaches the shliach, or he sends after another shliach. V'yamar alone, he says to him, get shan asati lach batalu, the get that I gave you is nullified. Harei zeh batal, it is going to be nullified. Here you have a situation of a dibur nullifying a dibur. And the Gemara says to this, to Yufta the Reish Lakish, to Yufta, this is actually a refutation of Reish Lakish, and it is indeed a refutation. And the reason why in this version it's a refutation and above it's not a refutation is because, again, Reish Lakish said earlier, Reish Lakish said that he actually himself would admit, in the first version, Rabbi Yochanan admitted, Reish Lakish rather admitted to Rabbi Yochanan that if you have a situation where there is somewhat of a maisa, Reish Lakish said, where it's a little bit of a dibur mixed with a maisa, only over there, I say that the dibur is not mevatel the dibur. That's why Reish Lakish said in that previous case, Reish Lakish said the case was where you had the kiddushin that actually was accepted by the woman. There's a little bit of a maisa over there. So Reish Lakish said that's where I say that a dibur is not mevatel a dibur, because it's not just a dibur alone. There's a little bit of a maisa. And so since Reish Lakish admitted that was the case, Reish Lakish would say that by a regular dibur, we do say a dibur is able to be mevatel dibur in the first version, and that's why this is not a question from Gittin, from the Mishnah in Gittin. Is not difficult for Reish Lakish, because it's just a regular dibur. A dibur is mevatel a dibur according to Reish Lakish. But according to the second version, it's not the case. According to the second version, where we're talking about a situation where she appointed a shliach to be makabel the kiddushin, and then she's taking back the shlichus, it's considered to be no mice at all over there. It's only a mice when she herself actually receives the kiddushin, not when she's undoing the shliach, and the shliach was the one who was supposed to accept the kiddushin, and therefore Reish Lakish is essentially saying, even where it's just a dibur, one dibur is not mevatel a dibur. He's going further in this second version, and that's why this question from Gittin is a question on Reish Lakish, because here it says that when you have a dibur is mevatel a dibur. Reish Lakish is not able to make a distinction that he admits that dibur is mevatel dibur, because he does not admit in the second version. There's no scenario where he admits that, and therefore again this is a tiyufta de Reish Lakish. It's a refutation of Reish Lakish, because you see from here that dibur is mevatel dibur. And the Gemara continues, v'hilchasan, the halacha is kivasi de Rabbi Yochanan. The halacha is like Rabbi Yochanan, v'afilu b'kamaisa, and even in the first case, v'afagav the ikol meimer shani nesinas mostly arisha the chamaisa dami, meaning even in that first version, meaning to say even that first case where there was a little bit of an action that was involved as well, and therefore you could have said that it's different. The money was actually given over to the woman. It's considered like a maisa. Maybe it shouldn't be batal. The dibur shouldn't be mevatel the first dibur, because that first dibur is considered like a maisa. No, it is mevatel. The halacha is like Rabbi Yochanan, even in that first version, even in that first case, a situation where the money was received by the woman, and it might be considered like a maisa. Afilu hachi, nevertheless, asi dibur mevatel dibur. The dibur can come along and can be mevatel the other dibur. And the Gemara says, Kashi hilchasa hilchasa. If that's the case, we have a contradiction, one halacha against another halacha. Because Amrit hilchasa Rabbi Yochanan, because you're saying over here the halacha is like Rabbi Yochanan, that dibur is mevatel dibur. However, v'kaim olon hilchasa Rav Nachman, but we've established in a different situation with regards to divorce that the halacha is like Rav Nachman, and that seems to imply that dibur is not mevatel dibur, as we'll see in a moment. The boy luhu, because they had the following question. What happens if you have a situation where, again, the husband sends a shliach with a get, and then the husband is mevatel that shlichus, but the get itself, if he decides he wants to use that document itself, can he use that to divorce with that? Rav Nachman says chozer megarish bo. Rav Nachman says he is able to divorce with it again. Rav Sheshes Amar eino chozer megarish bo. Rav Sheshes said he's not able to use it again. V'kaim alon hilchas hakavasi de Rav Nachman, and we've established that the halach is like Rav Nachman, and so therefore that's a contradiction to Rav Yochanan, because here it seems, according to Rav Nachman, chozer megarish bo, you can use the document again. It seems like the dibur is not mevatel the dibur. This get is not batel. And the Gemara answers to that, Nihi de batle mitorah shlichus. Granted that in this case you've been mevatel the shliach and saying, the husband is saying, I no longer want you to be my shliach to divorce my wife. So the shlichus is batel. However, what Rav Nachman is saying, mitoras get lo batle, but the document itself, the idea that this should no longer be a get, that has not been nullified. And that's how it is that we can paskin like Rav Yochanan, but also like Rav Nachman. We hold like Rav Yochanan that a dibur can be mevatel dibur. So that would apply, let's say, to the shlichus, that can be undone, but the document itself is not undone. And we will take a look at Tosfos over here in Mitoras Get Lo Batle. He hasn't nullified it from being a document, from being a get that can be used. Perish de mistama eino miskavin levatel el shliach. The way Tosfos understand our Gemara is that mistama, his intention was just to be mevatel the shliach. Well, according to this understanding of the Gemara, imamar beferish, let's say a person would say explicitly, ani mevatel hageratzmo, I am being mevatel the document itself, shu batel, then it would be considered nullified, upasul agarish, but it would be possible to use that get for a divorce. And Tosfos know to v'perak hasholeach, but in perak hasholeach in Gittin, Garis over there, the girsa is gita gufe mika batel. The get itself, is it batel? Mashma she'in haget misbatel. There it sounds like the get cannot be nullified. But tzarich lefarish, and you'll need to explain, ata savar shaget yachol li pasel bebittel. You think that the get is able to be disqualified with the get, with bittel, with nullification. Veloi, it's not true. Da'areu kemo mo'os she'enan misbadlus. It's like money that can never be nullified. Ta'mayachar da'haget kasav kil chaso, because once the get is written properly, eino yachol avatlo. It's not possible to be mevatel it. Vim yirtze yachzer v'yagarish bo, and therefore, if he wants to, he can use it again to divorce with. And so you see here this discussion within Tosfos. Are we saying that it is impossible to be mevatel a get, or are we simply saying that in this case it was not his intention to be mevatel the get, but it's theoretically possible? That's a discussion within this Tosfos. And the Gemara continues at the two dots. The Mishnah said, Mekudeshes l'sheni, she is Mekudeshes to the second man. That's talking about a situation where the first man comes and says he's being Mekadesh her after 30 days, then the second man comes along and he's Mekadesh her before that 30 days ends, so then the Kiddushin works with the second individual. And the Gemara says, Amar Rav says, Mekudeshes l'sheni liolam. She's Mekudeshes to the second man forever, meaning even after the 30 days ends, and so then that first Kiddushin should have been Chal, but it doesn't make a difference. The second Kiddushin was Chal, and therefore that the first Kiddushin, which ends up that it's supposed to be Chal later on, is not able to be Chal. She's already married to the second individual before that 30 days came. And the Gemara continues with Shmuel Amar, but Shmuel says, no, Mekudeshes l'sheni ad lamed yom. She's only Mekudeshes to the second man until the 30th day. But la'achar lamed yom, but after 30 days, pake kiddushay sheni, so then the kiddushin of the second man, it actually goes away. The gamri kiddushay rishon, and the kiddushin of the first man, that concludes, and that actually takes effect. And the Gemara says, Yosef Rav Chisda v'kakashale. Rav Chisda was sitting and he found this difficult, meaning this opinion of Shmuel, that the Kiddushin of the second man goes away, it's difficult. Kiddushay sheni v'mai paki, how does this Kiddushin of the second individual, how does it go away? There's no get over here. How is it that Kiddushin ends? And the Gemara continues, Amar le Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef said to him, he said to Rav Chisda, Mar areisha masni la v'kashale. The master understood that the Machlokas Rav and Shmuel is going on the beginning of the Mishnah, as we explained it. The beginning of the Mishnah again is talking about a situation where the first man says clearly that his Kiddushin is going to be Chal after 30 days. Then the second man comes and is Mekadesh the woman. So there, of course, that Kiddushin from the second man would stay, it would not go away, and the Kiddushin from the first individual is not going to be Chal. That's why V'kashale, because you understood the Machlokas Rav and Shmuel going on the first case in the Mishnah, that's why it was difficult to you, because Shmuel's position does not make sense if that's the case. However, Rav Yehuda Aseifa Masni, Rav Yehuda, he understood understood that the machlokas between Rav and Shmuel is actually going on the end of the Mishnah, velo kashale, and that's why it didn't bother him, it wasn't difficult to him. What was the end of the Mishnah? The end of the Mishnah is me achshav ula achar shloshim yom v'chulu. It said in that case, the person, when he's mekadesh the woman, he doesn't say that it's going to be chal after 30 days. He says it's going to be chal from now until and after 30 days. So it's really, as we said, it's unclear in that situation whether it's being chal retroactively from now or is it being chal after 30 days, and therefore it was a safek kiddushin. And so now on that there's a machlokas Rav and Shmuel. Amar Rav says mekudeshes veina mekudeshes liolam. Rav says, let's say again a second individual comes and he's mekadesh within that 30 days, so now it's not clear which person she's actually mekudeshes to, and according to Rav it's not clear liolam, it's not clear forever. Ushmuel Amar, but Shmuel says mekudeshes veina mekudeshes ela ad lamed yom. When we say that it's a suffix, it's unclear whether she has a kiddushin, it's unclear until that 30 days. But la'achar lamed, but after 30 days, pake kiddushay sheni, so at that point in time already the kiddushin of the second individual is paka, it goes away. V'gamre kiddushay rishon, and the kiddushin of the first individual actually does take effect, meaning to say, according to Shmuel, after the 30 days, it's like a condition. Once 30 days goes by, so then retroactively she's mekudeshes to the first individual. And once she's mekudeshes to the first individual, since that's retroactive, the kiddushin of the second individual does not take effect. And the Gemara explains this. L'Rav, according to Rav, misafkale. According to Rav, the explanation of the Mishnah is that there's a doubt. Itanoa havi, ichazara havi. When this person said, the first man said it's a kiddushin me'achshav ula'achar shloshim yom, from now and after 30 days, we don't know exactly what he means. Does he mean it's a condition and it's retroactive? Or is he retracting and saying that the kiddushin only takes effect after 30 days? Therefore, since it's a suffix, that suffix remains even after the 30 days passes. But l'Shmuel pshita lei detana have. According to Shmuel, it's obvious that it is a condition. It's obvious it's retroactive. There's only a suffix when you're within the 30 days. But once the 30 days goes by, so then retroactively the kiddushin will take place to the first man. And the Gemara continues, Uvipluksa dahani tanoi. This machlokas between Rav and Shmuel is actually the same machlokas tanoim that we find in the following brisa. The Tanya, as we learned in a brisa, mehayom ula'achar misa. Let's say a person gives a get and he says it's from today, but after death. Now, in general, a get is not able to be given after death, but in this case, he also said mehayom. So what exactly does he mean? So the brisa says, get ve'eno get divrei chachamim. According to the chacham, it's a get, but it's not a get. Meaning to say, according to the chacham, it's a suffix. What exactly does he mean? Does this mean to say it's retroactive, it's like a condition, in which case it would be a good get? Or does he mean to say he's retracting, he means to say he wants it to be a get la'achar misa, and there's no such thing as a get la'achar misa, and so the chachamim say it's indeed a suffix, and therefore it's get ve'eno get, you have to treat it like a suffix divorce. Rebbe says, kazeh get, in this case it is considered to be a get, because Rebbe understands that it is just a condition. After death, the get is going to be chal retroactively, mei hayom, and therefore it is going to be a kosher get, and that's exactly the machlokas between Rav and Shmuel. According to Rav, it is a doubt. We don't know whether it's a condition or a retraction, like the chachamim, and according to Shmuel, we understand certainly that it's considered to be a condition, like Rebbe. And so the Gemara says, v'neima Rav halacha k'Rabbanan. So why doesn't Rav just say the halacha is like the Rabbanan? V'neima Shmuel halacha k'Rebbe. And why doesn't Shmuel just say that the halacha is like Rebbe? If it's the same machlokas tanoim, why are they learning it again when it comes to Kiddushin? And the Gemara says, tzricha, no, it's necessary to have this machlokas again by Kiddushin. The ilu amar Rav halacha k'Rabbanan. Because let's say Rav said that the halacha is like the Rabbanan when it comes to get. Hava minas, I would have said hasam over there when it comes to gerushin, when it comes to divorce. De l'rechoka ka'asi. So there he's trying to distance himself from her. So it makes sense in that situation to say get ve'eno get, that maybe over here it's some kind of a retraction. Maybe he doesn't really want to divorce her, he's retracting. That makes sense to have a suffix. Aval hacha, but over here by Kiddushin, de l'krova ka'asi, where he's trying to bring her close to him. So ema mo de l'shmuel de tanah. So I might think that Rav would admit to Shmuel that it is considered to be a condition in that case, because it's a different scenario by Kiddushin. And so therefore Rav wants to stress the same shita of the chachamim when it comes to get, that it's a suffix by mehayom ula'achar misa. That's the same thing over here by Kiddushin by mehayom ula'achar lamed yom. Rav considers it to be a suffix. V'yamar Shmuel halacha k'Rebbe, and let's say Shmuel said the halacha is like Rebbe. Again, when it comes to get isha, Rebbe says that it's considered to be a condition and it's chal retroactively. If he said that by get, I would have thought hasamu de'in get la'achar misa. So over there, we know there's no such thing as a get la'achar misa. So he's saying mehayom la'achar misa. Obviously, he's not trying to give a get la'achar misa. It must be, it's a condition. After his death, it's going to be chal retroactively. Avalacha, but over here by Kiddushin, the Yesh Kiddushin Lachar Lamed, there is such a thing as Kiddushin after 30 days. So Ema Modi Le Rav. So I might say that Shmuel admits to Rav that in this situation you have a genuine suffix. Maybe he does mean for it to be Chal after 30 days. And so then therefore Tzricha, that's why it's necessary to have this Machlokis by Kiddushin as well. And the Gemara continues, Amar Abaya says, Viletaime de Rav. Now, according to the reasoning of Rav again says that it's a suffix in the case of Mehayom. Let's say he says it should be a Kiddushin from today, but then he says after 30 days. So in such a situation, Rav says it's a suffix. We don't know whether he means that it should be from today, or whether he means it should be La'achar Lamed Yom. So he says, according to Rav, let's say one person comes and says to her, again, our case, the person says you should be mekudeshes to me from now and after 30 days. And according to Rav, that's a suffix. Doesn't mean from now, or doesn't mean after 30 days. Then another person comes. And he says to her, you're mekudeshes to me from now and after 20 days. So they're both saying the me'achshav, but the second person is saying a little earlier in terms of the esrim yom. And Rashi explains, again, Rav has a doubt whether it's a retraction or a condition. So in such a situation, one person says from now and after 30 days. It's a suffix, is it now or 30? Then the second person comes and says from now, but after 20 days. The point is, the whole point is that the condition of the second individual, it actually finishes before the condition of the first one arrives. So therefore, if the first person was retracting and really meant that it should only be chal after 30 days, so then the second person's kiddushin will actually be a good kiddushin, because the 20 days comes before the 30 days. Because the first person was retracting, it's not retroactive. So it makes a difference. In other words, if you're going to say over here that the first individual, it's not really me'achshav, but it really means after 30 days, then the second individual's kiddushin will actually be chal. But of course, if that's not the case, if the first person's kiddushin is retroactive, then the first person came first, and his kiddushin is going to be chal, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Samech Amud Aleph.